Let's do this. This is my first podcast. Woohoo.
Really?
Really?
No, okay. All right. Well, welcome back to Zombie Squad Cast, and I have Jennie Lacovey. And Jennie and I go back maybe 15, 16 years to Towson University, where, if I'm not mistaken, you were a film student as well, EMF major?
I was,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. So a bunch of, college student projects and maybe, was it 2-3 different projects every semester, every class there was something we were shooting or editing or cooped up in the editing lab or that audio booth or something. So,
Yep.
So Jennie, I understand now you're an agent with the talent agency and out in LA.
Yep.
So without further ado, Jennie Lacovey, go ahead, tell us who you are, what you do, and how things have been.
Yeah, well, my name is Jennie. Born and raised in Maryland, in Silver Spring, Maryland, right outside of DC. Grew up dancing and performing and was a dance major my first semester at Towson. And my second semester freshman year, I decided to make a switch to behind the scenes. So I decided to go the electronic media and film route with a focus in television. So that's how we're connected. Mm-hmm. And then I did some internships while in college. I interned at a casting agency in DC, Central Casting, and then I spent the summer in between my junior and senior year in New York, interning at MTV and another business in New York in television. And loved New York, but I came out to visit an actor cousin in Los Angeles after graduation because I knew I needed to move to New York or LA to pursue what I was looking to do. I knew I wanted to work in TV and film, but I didn't know what. And after visiting LA for about 10 days, I knew that this was more my jam and the place for me. So I tended bar and waitressed for 9 months, saved up a ton of money, and then moved to LA 16 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's crazy.
So so pretty much right out of graduation or right after graduation, I guess.
Yeah, I traveled Australia for 2.5 months with 2 friends. One of them went to Towson. We also went to high school together. And then I went to Israel and did Birthright for 10 days. And then, so after my 2 traveling experiences, saved up money for 9 months and then moved straight out to LA. And I've been here ever since. I currently live in Hollywood. I've been in Hollywood for 4 years. So I moved to LA, didn't know anybody, got an internship at a post-production house that edited a lot of music videos and documentaries. Even though I was good at editing, I realized I didn't want to be an editor.
I'm in the same boat. I can't agree with you more. I'm good at it.
Yeah.
And I can't stand it as far as maybe ADD, ADHD. I got to be on set or something different. Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't want to like live in a dungeon.
Yeah. I lost you a little bit. I think is it my Wi-Fi? Or I hope it's not. I hope it's not my Wi-Fi, but you froze up a little bit there. Let me see here.
I hung out with a group of girls.
Oh, Jennie, I think the Wi-Fi glitched out a little bit. So
yeah,
but so stuck in a dungeon. Pick up where you're stuck in a dungeon.
Yeah, didn't want to be stuck in a dungeon. So I got a sales gig for a 1.5 years while I was looking. Met a group of girls that were super cool. Used to go out with them all the time. During one of our outings, I met another girl that worked at Bloc Talent Agency, which is where I work. I work at a boutique agency. And this is back in 2007. She was the head of accounting there. she mentioned that this boutique agency specialized in dance and choreography, which I have a huge background in. And, you know, like a light bulb went out and I was like, holy shit, this is the perfect job for me. I have a dance background. I have a TV degree. She mentioned that the owner of the company was looking a junior agent at the same time, which was extremely challenging. I stayed there for 3 years, ended up leaving the company to do some other things, worked at another agency, and then came back to Bloc 5 years ago once they lost one of their agents that was there for 10 years. So yeah, I am a talent agent in Hollywood.
That's
It is
awesome.
not as glamorous as it seems. That's what I do.
That's fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So both the dance and I guess Towson paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I loved Towson, especially towards the end, once I got my groove into like the whole TV film thing. I still hang out with one Towson person out here who has become very successful. So there's definitely some success stories in the TV film world out of Towson, which is really great. They have a good program.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, moving on to my next point, how would you, well, before I do that, have you still been sticking with, you know, writing, directing, shooting some small little passion projects, anything like that? And what free time you might have?
When I first moved out here, I did. When I first moved out here, I worked on a couple of student films with USC and UCLA out here. I actually was a backup dancer for an artist for about 6 months.
Okay.
It was interesting. But to be 100% honest, there's little to no free time as a talent agent. It is all consuming from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, every night, every weekend, every vacation, every holiday. And it doesn't leave you much free time for passion projects, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know, by taking on this role, I've essentially agreed to sacrifice a lot of my life to make other people's dreams come true. And that is definitely rewarding in a sense. So yeah, I play a big part in other passion projects, if you will.
Sure, of course. Yeah, absolutely. So now here we are, shut in, lockdown, quarantine. How has that impacted you professionally?
It's had a huge impact. Started beginning of March while we were still working in the office full time. We started to see a lot of our projects either cancel or postpone TBD. We have 2 offices, one in Los Angeles, one in New York. The one in Los Angeles, this is our 20th anniversary, and a big of what we do is it's the hub of the music industry. So we work on a lot of tours and a lot of live shows. And then New York, they specialize in mostly Broadway, and they have a small commercial department. But yeah, I have on average, I have at least 45 projects that I'm working on my desk at all times, and they slowly started dwindling down. Yeah. Even the music videos that I work on towards the end ended up canceling before the first shoot day, after all of the rehearsals or after the first shoot day. And so it went to nonstop working to absolutely nothing for about a week. And now the entertainment industry out here is slowly changing. They're becoming very creative. what they're doing now. I've worked on a couple of projects since this has gone down, and I've booked someone on a PSA. She had to shoot it in her apartment. I booked 2 girls on a non-union CVS commercial. They had to shoot it themselves in their house. So now actors and performers and dancers and what have you are having to take on all of the roles. So all of self-taping on their own. And then even the callbacks, doing Zoom callbacks and Skype callbacks, and then having to shoot on their own equipment in their house. So it's kind of cool that we're not completely dead. There is hope. But it has dropped substantially. You know, usually I'm working from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed, and that has not been the case. So
yeah, for the past couple months, it hasn't been 24/7.
Right. I mean, we went remote on March 17th. So I've been remote 49 days now. So I'm lucky. I'm still employed. I still have a job. I'm still getting paid for now. You know, but it's a ever-changing business. We're just taking it day by day to see how it develops.
Yeah. You know, luckily I'm familiar with the self-audition, the self-submit thing from the last 4 or 5 years, because I've been technically savvy as far as, you know, setting up some simple lights and maybe a white background. You know, I've been doing crew work for 15 years. And so having branched out into acting for the last 5 and doing the self-submits, I'm familiar with that. And then kind of adding on to that to do this podcast and take advantage of this downtime to do this podcast. And then also with this studio that you see, you know, I shot a couple of, you know, kind of new media projects that, you know, are set in like comic book universes, but it's shot and produced in a different way, being able to utilize a simple three light setup, 1 camera, green screen, or a white background, or, you know, maybe a you know, like draperies, tapestries like this, what have you. So you're absolutely right saying that Hollywood, TV, film, AV. My last crew gig was March 12th, and I think my last acting gig was the 11th or the 10th, and
Of March.
Yeah, of March. And so, luckily, another big moneymaker of mine, like you were saying, we're great editors. We hate it, but another great technical thing that I got into early in the game was live streaming. That was a huge growing, you know, tech product. A huge growing product was live streaming over the past 6-7 years. And there's a couple of companies that I got on the freelance roster for. Go to this site, go to this hotel, go to this conference, go to this concert, what have you, to 1 to 3 camera setup, live stream it with a computer and blah, 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 and, you know, stream it out. And then we figured out, okay, we can just put Zoom, we can do Zoom Hangouts or whatever, and then funnel that back into our streaming software and our decks and all that stuff. And we're still being able to maintain, for example, you know, Microsoft at the Washington, D.C. Convention Center, instead of actually being there, all these Microsoft heads would just be on Zoom and then funnel that back out, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's just finding these new intricate ways. I've seen, you know, a lot of these new PSAs, commercials, who just did, like Kellogg's is doing a lot of self-submit, a lot of iPhone stuff from individuals with their own iPhones. They dump it into Google Drive or Dropbox. Editor collects it, cuts a PSA, and that's how a lot of these commercials, because we have Hulu, so we don't have regular cable, but we have Hulu, so we're still getting these ads, and I'm seeing a lot of these really unique, smart, and innovative commercials and PSAs now with dancers, obviously. So you say So
we're my agency is known for having like young, hip, cool talent as dancers, or young, hip, cool, edgy hipster
Mm-hmm.
types.
Mm-hmm.
So we do work on some commercials and PSAs that don't exactly have dance involved, because they know that we have, you know, those types of performers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're still working on music videos, which is dope. Where they'll do like a Zoom choreography, so everyone is like doing the same movement and creating the same shapes from
Mm-hmm.
within inside their home, which is super creative. And then a couple of the benefit concerts that have gone on, the one with Lady Gaga and that sort of thing, they've been hiring some dancers like to dance for John Legend and stuff, and doing everything from their house, which has also been really cool to see. So I think one of the really great things that have come out of this is just everyone's being so creative and adapting to the
Sure.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, commercials still need to happen. We're consumers. We still need to purchase things. We need to find a new way of how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you need to buy a new car or toilet paper or whatever it is.
Right.
So it's been cool to see. I think that it's very tough on performers, and I haven't
Yeah.
seen the projects, at least that I work on, that has reflected an increase in the rate, because in my opinion, the performers should be paid more if
Mm-hmm.
they're taking on all of this extra stress by doing their own makeup and their own wardrobe and
Yeah.
their own lighting and their own camera work. I haven't seen that yet. But I really wish it was something that the producers and whoever's putting the budget together takes into consideration, because
Exactly.
they really do deserve it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I saw this music video, and it was a really unique music video. The way they, of course, everyone's producing this stuff, and they're integrating social distancing into their motifs, into the storyline, or the meme, or the gimmick, or whatever. So I don't know how much you're into pro wrestling. I just finished watching. I'm still watching AEW. Is kind of like a competitor to the big WWE, WWF. But you
I've
know,
been to some matches back when I lived on the East Coast,
yeah,
like
yeah,
as a
yeah.
kid. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm watching AEW, and I mentioned it before on this show, on a couple of other episodes. But they, you know, you're familiar. You know, the old normal was the show would travel. They would go to a different
Yeah.
location in a different city, sold out event center. You know, and now I think their base of operations is in, I want to say, Atlanta. And so I think they've got this complex. The spectators are the wrestlers not wrestling that night. So they might have a third of the roster wrestling. You know, they did this funny bit where it was all selfie videos. And so one wrestler, you know how they're always doing promos. The old normal was wrestlers would do these
Yeah.
promos and
Or
talk
like talking shit.
and talking shit to each other. And so what they were doing now is they took their cell phone, they were shooting a selfie, they were talking shit, and then they would punch the camera, and they would cut to the guy who was talking shit to, who reacts to the punch. Like, he got hit, he might say something, he punches his phone, and then it goes to a third wrestler, and they were having this nonstop beef. And it was a great little funny 3-minute thing, but it shows how they're adapting to the situation. They're coming up with some really funny stuff to do.
Yeah.
But there's still, you know, guys wrestling. They're still touching each other. You know what I'm saying? And I think
Are they all getting tested before this goes down? That's
I
what I
would.
want to know.
Well, I
Because
would have.
that is a big
Yeah.
thing. Like, how are we going to protect these performers? Not just the audience members once
Right.
we reopen everything, but how are we going to protect the performers? I was just talking to a client yesterday about it, who is in Hamilton in the LA cast.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been on Hamilton for 2 years with one of the tours. And she was a swing, so I actually hadn't seen her perform on stage yet. And
Mm-hmm.
this was my first time that I was going to see her on stage. I was going to opening night, which was mid-March, which they canceled like a day before. So it was a super bummed out situation, but we were talking yesterday, and, you know, Broadway's hopefully going to open September at the latest. I know they're shut down through at least June 7th now, but and we're thinking about, you know, audience members, how are we going to protect them? But what about all of the talent on stage that are like singing and spitting in each other's faces and have kissing scenes and all of that stuff?
Right.
So it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah, and I've noticed on a lot of the castings around here, for the past couple of months, it's been real people, blankety blank,
Yeah.
real couples,
Yep.
real family, real father son.
Yeah.
Self-submit this. If it's on location, there's going to be all the quarantine safety measures, all the quarantine COVID precautions, so on and so forth. And so, yeah, they're finding ways to still have a couple kiss in their project, but it would be somebody like me and my wife, as opposed to me and an actress that I've never met before. So
and how does your wife feel about potentially being in a commercial with you?
Not right now. she's still recovering from the pregnancy, so she's like, maybe not right now, but she wants me to start, you know, pimping my kid out now because he's so cute and whatnot.
You gotta get your kid like a Coogan account. I would highly recommend it, because that money is just because you can't spend it. That's gonna go into that account, and then by the time your kid's 18, or you're gonna have a straight up college fund. I would highly recommend it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Something to consider.
I mean, I don't know how much work there is in Maryland for that area, because I haven't been back. Well, I've come to visit at least twice a year, but I haven't been working there in 16 years. But it's good to know that there's business.
So, yeah. So let me see. So I'm also in the DC Army National Guard. So that's part-time. And I deployed in 2014. Long story short, because I've told this story a million times, but long story short, I deployed in 2014. Went to Kuwait. We ran a jail there, and two of my colleagues, one moved to LA, one moved to Albuquerque, and they both started acting. And some commercials. Another buddy of mine got into another buddy of mine is originally from Belarus, like outside Russia. So he's always playing like the Russian gangster, the Russian hitman, the cosmonaut. He was in Independence Day Resurgence. He was in Preacher, and I think Stranger Things, the third season of Stranger Things. So
awesome.
So he started dabbling in acting. He said, with your military background now, you've been, you know, an MP for 3, 4, 5 years now. That can be your acting school. Like fill in the schedule, start picking up roles as cops, detectives. And so I think I got back in June. I think my first acting gig was on one of those ID crime shows. So that's the big thing that they shoot around here, because we had Discovery Channel in Silver Spring for
for sure.
So we had all these production houses producing Evil Twins, Evil Kin, Who Killed Jane Doe, Nightmare Next Door, all those crime recre shows. And so basically, I think every other week I had about anywhere between a 2 and 4 day gig as detective this, officer that, sergeant this.
That's fantastic. That's more than like Los Angeles actors work.
Exactly. So, you know, it's and me and a couple of Towson guys have always said to each other, it might be better to be a big fish in a small pond if we're knocking out stuff that gets on TV here.
Hell yeah.
Because, you know, being out in LA and killing it out there, that is the dream job. But it's
not easy.
It's probably a much bigger ant race, not even a rat race. It's like an ant race, maybe, if that's a proper term.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I know a lot of talented people, and some have made it and some haven't. I mean, my cousin who's older than me, graduated from NYU Tisch School of the Arts.
Mm-hmm.
She's a director. She's a comedic actress. She is so talented. It's insane. She
Right.
just put up a musical called Life and Boobs, which was hilarious. But
So what'd you call it? Life and boobs?
Life and Boobs.
Life
Yeah.
in
Life
boobs?
in Boobs. It's a musical about
Oh,
boobs.
okay.
It's great. But you know, she's had a rough time,
Yeah.
and you know, she should be on SNL in my opinion. But
Mm-hmm.
speaking of SNL, they've been super creative the past couple of weeks with doing all, I don't know if you're a fan of the show, but they've been going full quarantine, which has been pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think I saw some bits where maybe, you know, each actor's doing stuff on mobile devices at home in
Yeah.
their basements, in their dungeons, what have you. Yeah. And going back to John Krasinski with the Good News Show or something like that, and Jimmy Fallon
Yeah.
Jimmy Fallon's producing from home.
Same with Jimmy Kimmel, and it's
Jimmy,
good.
yeah. I mean, it's not about. I was on this really low budge semi cable access show about a year ago, about all the actors in this area, and it looked like early 90s Wayne's World type level quality cable access, not the movie Wayne's World, you know, the show that they made
Yeah,
within Wayne's
for
World,
sure.
like that kind of cable access from like 92 cable access. And it looked like that, but it was a decent show. And the producer
Yeah.
said, look, she won a bunch of like a whole bunch of local awards. And it's not what you have, but what you do with it. And this is a prime example. And I've done a lot of indie stuff, and I've tried to find all these different hacks of producing this and trying to pull that off. And this is really like proving my point, is that it's not what you have, but what you do with it. And it's about the content. It's about the content and the ideas and the story, and not so much $1 billion for green screen versus, you know, swingers budget or Blair Witch budget versus Avengers budget and you know, Dark Knight budget.
It's not about the content. I mean, it's not about the budget. It's about
Mm-hmm.
the content. It's about the acting. I mean, I've seen better sketches in quarantine shot with a cell phone than I've seen like a full-blown skit on the show. So
Yeah.
about the writing, it's about all of that jazz.
You know, because I'm thinking back, I think the funniest thing I saw in the last year was Adam Driver's, it was career day, and Adam Driver played this old oil baron, and he came to visit the kid. I forget the famous kid that's on SNL. He looks like Rami Malek, but he's not. He's the other.
Oh yeah.
He's like Rami
Ariana
Malek.
Grande's ex-boyfriend.
Yes. Ariana Grande's ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
So Adam Driver is playing his grandfather, an oil baron, and it's career day, and he's basically playing Daniel Day-Lewis from There Will Be Blood, and he's telling these 13-year-olds how to slaughter the competition, you know, like this old 1910s curmudgeon oil baron and that kind of career advice. And it was hilarious. But thinking now, they could probably pull that off, and it'd be even funnier if it was like a Zoom meet on SNL.
Yeah.
It would be just as funny, where everybody's kind of listening to him on a Zoom meet, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs,
For sure.
you know, murder the competition. But I think there's a lot of funny different things are coming together. Like today is Taco Tuesday, Cinco de Mayo, but it's ruined by a Mexican beer, Corona, right? So.
I mean, I got my materials for palomas, so I'm making palomas today and shrimp tacos, but I don't know what everybody else is doing.
Right. I'm a big IPA guy, so the fridge is constantly just filled with IPA, and I've been getting so fat, and I gotta like switch to vodka somehow.
I mean, if it's been a blessing and a curse in quarantine, I'm finally cooking for the first time in my life, but my pants are starting to get tight. I'm not gonna lie. You know.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
But I've been trying to get this video up, and so I can show you this this one last video.
Okay.
This is what happens when you star and direct in your own show. But here we
Okay.
go. See if I can pull this off without biffing it. Oh, you know what's happening? Jeez. This is what happens when you build your own studio and then you don't know how to run it. All right.
Wait, is Corona not a Mexican brand? Am I crazy?
The Corona beer is a Mexican beer, I thought.
Okay, well, what were you saying? How is that ruining Cinco de Mayo?
Coronavirus.
Oh.
Coronavirus.
Oh, yeah, I've seen all of those memes where all of the Corona is on the shelf, but all the other beer is gone. So sad. I'll support you, Corona.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like it's not their fault, and I don't. Why would it's called COVID-19? Where did they come up with Corona though? I don't get that. Like, why would they have done that? It's so dumb.
Doesn't coronavirus mean a virus from an animal? And then COVID-19 is the name of this specific 2020 virus.
Oh, well.
I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
Coronavirus is a disease that came from an animal, originated from an animal.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I trust you. I trust you. So here, yeah, see here, so finally, here's that freaking thing I wanted to show you. So, you know, these are like more music videos that people are doing now,
Yep.
you know, so there's a whole crew, maybe, well, probably not a crew, probably just one camera guy, but all these people are
they are
social distancing with masks, but they found like a quirky little way to, you know, come up with this music video, and it's dope.
Oh yeah, TikTok is freaking killing it,
and
right
TikTok
now.
is killing it.
And
TikTok.
Also, a good friend of mine who actually used to be my assistant for 3 years, but is absolutely thriving right now. She works for Dance On, and they're so busy because it's an all online based dance classes and dance challenges and working with TikTok and streaming. So they've been busy nonstop, which is great.
Oh yeah. So, you know, people are just finding ways to not only work within this, but I mean, it's also, you know, 9/11 wasn't a funny thing, but we found ways of persevering, coming together, making product, being inspired to make it a positive thing. But with this, it's not only like impacted us and frustrated us, and like we can't see our loved ones, but we found a way to persevere. But we also can make fun of this. You know, we can make jokes about it. Okay, we're going to do music videos in medical garb and masks and you know, make Zoom music videos and stuff like that. So yeah.
I mean, I will say myself, you know, I'm a single lady living in my apartment with my dog, and I have no complaints because it's been great. I'm not going to lie. But I've been talking to my family members, like all of my aunts and uncles and my dad and my sister, who I normally talk to, but I've been talking to them more than I did prior to this stay-at-home order. So there is a lot of positive that's coming out of this. And for me, one of the big positivities has been just getting closer with my family, even though I can't see them. But thank God we live in an age where we can FaceTime and we can Marco Polo and we can Zoom. And yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, and this was a learning lesson for me as far as procrastination goes, because my mother is very, very low tech. So for I think almost the entire time I've even been dating my now wife, I've wanted to go over there, install software on her computer where I can remote in from my computer, you know, couple of different softwares where
Yeah.
I would send a request, let me remote into your computer, she would approve it. And then I could help her. Oh, this doesn't work on my computer. What's wrong with it? Oh, you need to da 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 da. And I think it was end of March or first week of April, I finally physically went over there. Now I'm at risk because they're older. The scientists are saying older people are more susceptible. So you kind of avoid old people or young people or whatever. But so I have to go over there in mask and rubber gloves, and I got to sit there for 3-4 hours, doctoring up her computer, installing software. Then she needs to like put in a password or email or something. And then I got to go back on and then help her log into this and then fix the webcam. And then I can go home. And then, we realize, oh, your webcam is like 10 years old. You really got to get a new one so the kid can see your face. I mean, she can see my kid's face clear as day, iPhones and stuff, but she still has a flip phone. So
yeah, my dad's in the same boat.
mm-hmm.
My dad lives in Shady Side, Snug Harbor, Maryland. It's a small peninsula on the bay, and he still has a flip phone, has no idea what's going on. He's 72. He's in the high risk category. And my sister and I were just talking about that because he is really lonely, and he, asked her, can I come over for Easter? And she is a newborn as well. And she's like, no, dude, you are not coming over to hang out with my 4-month-old baby. But, we're talking about, sending him one of our old iPads so he can finally see us. Because unfortunately, this is going to have a second wave. And this winter, the next winter, we might be in the same sort of situation. So we have to prepare as much as possible.
Yep.
I mean, I'm preparing. I've really realized that I really need to build up my savings account as much as possible. So that's been my big focus during this, is really preparing.
If I don't know how much of my podcast you've seen earlier episodes, but I've had
I saw the entire casting episode and the beginning of Dwayne's episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Dwayne's episode too. Yeah. So there's some other episodes that me and the crew that is known as the Zombie Squad. So we were talking about diversified. Oh, now I can't remember what it's called. You got to look into
diversifying your money,
diversified funds, and diversified interest funds, I think it's called, and then a Roth IRA, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's all we've been talking about for like the last month.
Well, your Roth IRA and a traditional IRA should definitely be a thing, but that is for retirement, hands down.
Yeah, but you're talking about what? Maybe an emergency fund, like an emergency savings
fund. Yeah. I have a great credit score, and I'm all about having no debt and paying off everything. Yeah. But I've been reading a lot of money books during this quarantine, and you got to look out for you first. And you really have to build up a savings account and emergency fund. This is the first time, at the beginning, I was having a major freak out. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen financially. So yeah, I mean, my business is obviously taking a huge hit. A lot of our tours have postponed till 2021. They're not even doing it in 2020. 2020 is a wash.
Yeah, I pretty much wrote off 2020 as far as anything out in the public. Like I said, yeah, I'm still doing like the technical live streaming, the virtual streamings, but yeah, pretty much 2020 I think is a wash. Yeah. In
a sense.
Yeah.
There's going to be good that comes out of this, but
of course.
Financial wash. See you later.
Yeah. Yep. So I guess we touched a little bit on the personal impact. I mean, a senior family member, my dad and stepmother, they're in Sweden, and there's a lot of criticism about Sweden's handling of the situation. My dad and stepmother, they expatted years ago and have been in Sweden, for like the last less than 10 years. But they're there for good. but there's been a lot of criticism about Sweden's handling of the whole situation. And
they haven't had any spikes though, have they?
I don't think they have, but it's just people are still out at brunches. You know, I think it's business as usual. I don't think it's 100%, but you know, here in the States, it's like business is 5% as usual. I think there it's like 50%, 75%. Like they've maybe spread the tables out or something, but people are going to brunch, or I think maybe still. I don't know how strict they've gotten in the last week or two, but the last time me and my brother were on Google Hangouts, grilling my dad about what he needs to be doing to look out for himself, and he's like,
Right.
"Oh no, we're staying in," and we're like, "Okay, just you know all that stuff." And
Right.
but you know, it's like, yeah.
I just think that the baby boomers have a different mentality than our age group, the Gen Xers and some of the millennials. It's like they feel like they're invincible. I've had many conversations with a lot of my friends who are begging their parents not to work, not to interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think it's a generational thing.
Yeah. Baby boomers, I think, survived World War II and Korean War and Vietnam, and what the hell else was it that happened? Numerous riots
Yeah.
and presidential assassinations, Cold War. You know, I mean, I was alive. I think we both were alive in the Cold War, so you know, I kind of share that little bit of invincibility thing where I'm not saying everything has just fallen in my lap, but I do feel like I'm blessed. Like, you
Same.
know, I thought I'd be broke. Oh, what am I going to do this month? There's nothing coming in. And then all of a sudden I get an email, hey, 2 weeks of this at this rate. And I'm like, what the fuck? You know, like a savior, a guardian angel just came in last minute. And so of course, I mean, I don't want to get too religious and too political, but I mean, I have the basic faith that, you know, I am blessed. The kid's going to be healthy. The wife's positive. She's blessed as well. We have a strong structure here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I also think it's a frame of mind. I started meditating towards the end of last year, which is something that I've been meaning to do for years, and listening to a lot of manifestation podcasts during this downtime, now that I have the time to do it. And it really is like a mindset, feeling blessed, feeling grateful, asking the universe for things and believing it. And I think that it will show up. You know, my company luckily applied for one of the PPP loans through the SBA and was approved. So I am getting paid through June 12th as of right now. Who knows what's going to happen past then? But that's a huge, huge blessing.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Got to put that out there. You got to, I mean, I think that was one of your questions, maybe number 5 or something, but I feel like you got to be positive.
Oh,
you
yeah.
got to look at the glass half full in life, and in this sort of situation. There are a lot of positive things that are going to come out of this. For me personally, I can't speak for anyone else. I haven't had a family member or a friend who's been diagnosed with COVID-19 that hasn't pulled through. The closest thing that's happened to me is my aunt, who lives in Columbia, Maryland. Her 92-year-old mother, who lives in a nursing home out there, was diagnosed and beat it, which is pretty freaking amazing. But, you know, other than that, I'm alive. My friends are alive. My family's alive. This is the first break I've had in 5 years as being an agent. I get to do fun stuff in my house. So, you know, you got to look at it that way.
And that's another point is taking it, finding the pros and not dwelling on the cons. And I mean, I've thrown away so much shit in this house, minimalizing, I did, this last night was my third full day of spring cleaning and getting rid of junk and rearranging things and rebuilding things and resetting up the studio, and I completed 2 passion projects in the last month and a half, and not to mention the number one of all things that me and the wife are hands-on with the kid 24/7. And I've mentioned a couple times on the show before where, you know, you come home from work and all of a sudden he's laughing, and then a couple months later you come home from work and then all of a sudden he's like almost saying a word. Well, we're like watching every, not even, you know, minor development, but it's like every micro development where his coos turn into giggles, and then his weird, almost not really a smile, you start to see it actually turn into a smile, and then you actually, and then his giggles actually are turning into full-blown laughs, and him just moving his hands actually turn into him grabbing your face. And it's like all the micro developments we're actually watching, experiencing, and
and for a couple that lives in the United States that doesn't really focus on giving adequate maternity and paternity leave, like this is a blessing for you guys, because you probably wouldn't have been able to get these experiences with your first child any other way. Yeah,
so you're right. And my wife's a teacher, so she, you know, she works 9 to 5, except for she's got the summers off. She's got the winter off and then the summers off. And I make my own schedule, so I can get picky with gigs. I'm full-time freelance. I can make my own schedule. I can work. We had a whole different plan, all just set aside. And then this happened, and now she's teaching from home. I think next week she starts teaching from home. And I've been getting some, like I've mentioned before, I've been getting some of these gigs where, you know, say you're on a TV show and you get an hour break for lunch or something. I can go upstairs and play with the kid and have my hour lunch at the same time because it's here. And so I find it's not a blessing. This whole thing sucks, obviously, but it's focusing on the positives and not dwelling on the negatives. You know, you have to study you got to study the negatives, kind of study them, and rework the negatives so that those negatives are either learning lessons, training lessons, or you find a way to eliminate them altogether, you know, if that makes sense. Oh, I got you. All right.
Want me? Okay.
You know, that might be my unstable connection. I don't know.
I don't think it's mine, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah. No, I think it's mine because I probably have like 17 other things running in this house, and I should know better if I'm going to be producing a semi-professional podcast. So, speaking of, you know, utilizing this time, has there been, you mentioned some money books that you've been reading, and you can, you know, tell me a little bit more about that, and maybe, you know, movies or some series that you've been streaming, binge watching, but these money books. And so what was that number one book again?
Oh, it's called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
And The Artist's Way, and that was Martin Scorsese's.
It's Martin Scorsese's ex-wife, and she is a artist and talks about, you know, getting back to your artist roots and getting back to your creativity, because we're all creative people and some of us have lost it along the way. Definitely myself. You know, I've used to be super creative growing up and in college and all that jazz. And once I became an agent and focused my attention there, I really lost a lot of that. So it's been really cool to connect to that huge part of myself again.
Sure.
Yeah. So I've been doing that. I just binged Hollywood on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
Finale last night. Have you seen it?
I saw the trailer. That's like next on my list. Yeah.
So good. Loved
Okay.
it. Loved it. But I love everything Ryan Murphy. And I just finished working on one of his films that's going to be dropped on Netflix called The Prom. We actually booked the lead out of our New York office, which is the first time we've ever booked a lead in a film, which is pretty exciting for us. And then I had 10 dancers work on it. So I'm really excited, but Hollywood was fantastic. If you love the acting world, if you love Hollywood, if you love sex, it's a great show.
Did your agency have anything to do with soundtrack?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen the show Soundtrack? So that's right up your alley. So it's a really good plot, a lot of plot twists. It's basically about a couple, they have a kid, a lot of rough family relationship stuff, one side of the wife's family is rich, the husband's family is poor, a lot of different dynamics. But the difference with this show is, I guess it's basically a musical, but they they don't break out into musical numbers. They break out into music video numbers. So the style with this is that it's just not like someone doesn't just break out into dance in the restaurant. They break out into dance and then everything just completely changes. It's like this crazy music video. It's way more in depth than just say a musical. It's way more like a music video. Yeah.
So is it a show or is it a film?
It's a Netflix original.
A Netflix original. I'll have to put that on the list.
Yeah, so it's called Soundtrack. Yeah. So me and the wife, I think, finished that just as the quarantine started. We knocked all that out.
Nice.
That was a while ago. And I think I'm on this 80s horror sci-fi B-movie kick, like Roger Corman films, full moon feature films.
Nice.
Yeah, like Cannon. You remember Golan and Globus? Cannon films of the Chuck Norris and the American Ninjas. And
yeah, of course.
Like the what else was the bad ones? The early Jean-Claude Van Damme stuff, like Bloodsport and Nemesis and Cyborg. I've just been like binge watching all those movies on a couple of different, like Tubi and Pluto has all that stuff in a like 80s Rewind.
Okay.
Or there's, like the cult 80s cult kind of channels on these different streaming services. And that's just what I've been like melting my brain with. It's just like the old 80s and even like early 90s B-movie stuff. You remember the Blockbuster days, and you would go into Blockbuster, and of course, when you go into Blockbuster, you want to find all the hits. But if you go to the sci-fi section, you always see those same like 10 covers, and you kind of look at it like, should I get that? Or the covers look really crazy, but then the movie is just like so bad it's good type of sci-fi horror. Yeah. So that's what I've just been binge watching. But
nice. And then of course Tiger King and like all of the stuff that everybody is watching.
I can't get the wife to agree to Tiger King yet, so I might just have to pull the trigger.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I might have to go solo. Yeah. And and I don't know if you have Prime, but Hunters.
I do.
Hunters with Pacino.
Yeah.
That show is the best show on Prime right now.
It's pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Did you finish it?
I haven't finished it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you'll probably DM me once you finish it and be like, "What the hell just happened?" But yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. So, what would you say is your? So we kind of discussed how productions are kind of evolving. What is kind of like? I don't know if I'm phrasing this right, but what's your vision, or what's kind of like your outlook on what the new normal will be in 6 months to a year?
I think auditions and callbacks are going to continue to be self-tapes for the rest of 2020. I don't think they're going to risk any sort of contamination or spreading the virus through audition and callbacks. I think that's a wash, which can be somewhat unfortunate for a lot of the performers because they really light up in a room, and that's going to be hard to read and make that connection over a self-tape, but it is what it is.
Especially dancing.
Yeah.
Especially dancing, I'd say, right?
Yeah.
Like as far as self-taping.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I also think that there is going to be a ton of paperwork and regulations for everyone being on set, and a lot of extra work for everybody in production, just making sure that everyone's safe, and everyone's going to have to be rule followers and go by the book and take those safety precautions, and possibly built-in hazard pay, which I'm sure my dancers will be thrilled about. Yeah, I just think that there's going to be a lot of rules and regulations and extra work.
Yeah. I've discussed this with a couple of previous guests of mine where that buffet style's out the window. It's all probably going to be like individually wrapped portioned things. Probably double up on the medic department.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, I mean, budget's going to have to like triple up on the Clorox wipes and the hand sanitizer and all that stuff.
If they can find any, sure.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. But yeah, absolutely. What would you say is your next agenda or your next set of goals for the next couple of months?
Personally or professionally or?
Anything you're working on, something you want to knock out or like what's your basic agenda for?
I mean, you truly want to take advantage of this time. So from an agent's perspective, we want to make sure that all of our clients have their updated materials and they are everywhere and organized. So now's the time to make sure your new headshots are updated on all of the online casting sites, not just one. They're updated on our website. All of your resumes are completely updated. You have that, self-tape studio set up in your house. Maybe you need to order some new equipment, like a light ring or a tripod or a certain camera. Maybe this is the time that clients really need to focus on training. There's so much free training going on right now, like from yoga to all these dance classes on Live IG. I mean, now's the time to be signing up for that improv class that you always wanted to take. They're still having them over Zoom. Casting directors are still meeting with people, and agents are still having Zoom meetings. So now is about preparation for the future, getting all of your material squared away so you can hit the ground running as soon as the entertainment industry picks back up again. Yeah. It's all about preparation. You should always be prepared at all times, but now there are no excuses. We all have this downtime. We all need to get it together. On my end, I'm organizing everything. I'm making a list of all of my singers and what vocal range they are in. So it makes it easier on my part to submit them. It's just organization, training, and preparation.
Yeah. I can't agree more. Me and another colleague, we're like fine tuning our websites. Another guy that's a Navy, two guys that are Navy vets. We've done, military and law enforcement consulting for some projects. And so we're updating that website, and I'm constantly fine tuning my YouTube channel and my library of projects and, little passion projects that I might work on. I'll have, an editing project, and I want to fine tune it so that it's just copy and paste, so that when I'm editing the next thing and next thing and next thing, and it's all formulaic. I want to set up the preset timeline so that for the next 3 years, I'm not sitting there starting from scratch with every project. It's like, here's the preset, and then episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is like chop, 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 based off of this this cookie cutter thing that I can just, this preset timeline in Final Cut, in Final Cut and Premiere and what have you. And it's little things like that, you know, start jotting down a bunch of notes of like these little things, start checking boxes. And that's been my big advice, is just start checking boxes. Come up with a list of all these things. Like you said, in 6 months to a year, the doors are going to start opening. And another thing, as far as producing, huh?
If not sooner.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
optimistic.
Probably sooner, because I was talking to a couple of cinematographers, and they said, I'm investing in long lenses because we might find a way to produce a scene, but crew's going to have to be further back. So, you know, more intricate booms, because maybe a sound guy's not going to be able to mic somebody. You know, the actor might not be comfortable with that. So how do we boom that? Set up different mics here or there, those really sharp, very expensive, but really intricate, sharp booms, where if you point it right at that person, you pick them up and nothing else. But long lenses, you know, going to be shooting somebody from, you know, 12 to 15 feet away, still doing the close up and the medium and the wide and the 2-shot and blah, blah, blah. But the crew is going to be further back. So, and cinematographers, might have to figure out a different way of lighting things, because it's not going to be a small little closet with 7 lights and the camera right on the person. So how do we light this scene with more natural, practical light?
Yeah.
So,
and now is the time to get all of your socials and your YouTube and your online content together, which plays such a huge role in anyone in the commercial business, and especially for dancers. You know, as lame as this sounds, when you go into an audition, whether it's self-tape or what have you, especially for a commercial, a lot of times they will ask how many followers you have.
mm-hmm.
And it plays a big role out here. And anyone under 10,000, you know, they're probably going to go for the dancer that has 50,000, because they know they're going to be able to repost it and get that many more views. And I know the whole thing is very lame, and we don't like talking about, you know, making sure your IG and your Facebook has like a certain amount of following and a certain amount of content, but it has proven to be extremely important in the commercial world. So now's the time to focus on that content when we have the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, before we wrap this up, is there one last point of advice, one last bit of advice, and one last point you'd like to close out with our viewers?
Yeah, I would say, which is something that I talked about earlier, is just try and stay positive as best you can, and take this time to do some self-reflection and self-work. Maybe be a little more creative and work on your art. What better time than now? Absolutely.
Absolutely. So before we go, any plugs, any links, any socials you want to put out there for yourself?
All of my social stuff is pretty, you know, it's for me and my family and my friends.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to check out the agency that I work for, it's la.blocagency.com. So that's BLOC agency.com. So I am Jenny from the Bloc Agency. Woo!
That's awesome.
And then, yeah, we're at Bloc LA on IG and Twitter and all of that stuff. So if you want to check out some fancy dance moves and what we're working on, it's all right there.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Jenny, thanks again for joining us here on Zombie SquadCast. And
For sure.
yeah,
Thanks for having me.
it's great catching up. Haven't
I
talked to
know.
you in the longest.
It's been a
And
while.
yeah, absolutely. Well, to my viewers out there, like, subscribe, share, comment, click all of Jenny's links below, Block Agency, ring the bell for notifications, and check us out next time.